Good morning, everybody. We're going to kick things off. We're 2 minutes over schedule and attendee numbers are climbing up. I'm Dominic Harvey. I'm the Sales Director of CWJobs. CWJobs obviously supplies tech talent to the UK. Has been doing, by next year, it'll be 22 years we've been doing this. I'm very, very pleased to be joined for the third time this year, and I'll explain why I'm pleased at that. But I'm very pleased to be joined by Steve Ward. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Really good to be with you guys again on something here. So I'm UK and Ireland Director for Universum. Universum is the world's largest insight-driven employer branding agency. So we look at talent insights. We collect 1.5 million pieces of talent insights around the world and help allow that to shape decision-making and targeting talent, employer branding, recruitment, marketing, communications, and the like. So, and today, yeah, we'll be covering some things around tech talent, hence why I'm on the CWJobs webinar, because we'll focus in on 2020 research that looked at tech talent. So looking forward to sharing some of those gems with you.
Excellent. I mean, the two reasons why I really like working with you, Universum and yourself, Steve, is that A, it's in the tech environment. It means Universum's focus is, a great deal of focus has been on the tech environment because it's working very, very well this year in terms of what's been a very challenging year. The sector is holding up extremely well. It's part of the answer out of this terrible situation we find ourselves in, and also what Universum delivers is a real tangible toolkit of what you can actually do, not concepts, not philosophies of going forward, but things you can actually do to make a tangible difference to how you get people through the door, and that's really useful. When I think back when I was a recruiter, that's the kind of stuff which actually makes a difference. But anyway. Let's crack on. Let's see what we've got happening. So just a bit of housekeeping. The session is recorded. Everybody will be sent out a copy after the webinar, so no need to furiously take notes. On the top right, hopefully you'll see a little box, and that is where you can put your questions. If you have any technical difficulties, use the chat function. We might be able to help you out on that. We're feeling brave. There's going to be a couple of polls, so please get involved in that. Hopefully the technical stuff at the background will work, and obviously feel free to share your insights if you want to do that. They're the tags at the bottom. Great. We've already received some questions, just to go back to the questions point, so I'll try and tackle some of those as we flow through, but this is the actual agenda. So I'll just run through what the state of play for tech in the UK is. Then we'll look at what tech talent cares about when they're looking for the next job. Of course, no webinar this year would be complete without mentioning how COVID is impacted. Then it's a closer look at gender equality in tech. This is something that continues to be an issue, and I think it will unfortunately continue to be an issue for another 4, 5, 6 years at least. But so long as we're concentrating and tackling it, I think we can really make headway in it, and there's some great advice later on. Then it's candidates' outlook for a career in tech and career changes, and then finally some practical advice in securing that tech talent, and then we'll run through questions and answers if we have enough time at the end. If we don't, we'll definitely tackle one or two, but if there are a plethora of questions, then myself and Steve will sit down and answer those on email. So let's begin. Let's kick things off with the state of play. So the tech market, the UK tech market. Well, in the last 2 years, 2.93 million jobs have been created in this environment. It now represents 9% of the entire workforce in the UK, and things were going swimmingly until, of course, beginning of the year, coronavirus hit, and everything, even tech, came to a shuddering halt. What I'm pleased to say is that this particular sector has managed to get going and is moving faster than many other sectors. Now, if we look at what CW have seen, and to give you some context, CW gets and has had 6 million visits this year. So in terms of numbers, it's very good at showing trends. But recently, in the last 3 months, we've seen 14% in applications to visit. So when people are visiting, they are much more liable to actually interact, apply, and get a move on with looking for their next career. And I think that's really indicative of an audience that wants to get involved and change careers and see what the next opportunity is. We've seen an increase in 25% in the last 3 months of jobs posted. We dropped by, I think it was something like 70% in that kind of shuddering halt phase mid-March to mid-April. And it's been coming back quite well since then, but 25% in the last 3 months. I think there was some concern if the second lockdown would really have a knock-on effect. It hasn't actually had that much of an effect. And on the generalist side, generalist boards, I think you've seen them stagnate maybe in the last 3 weeks, but tech has continued to creep up. We are seeing more website visits, and we are seeing more active candidates coming through. So generally speaking, a good place to be in, all things considered, this year. If we move to the next slide, to overlay another survey we did, our confidence index earlier this year, 49% of IT leaders said that their business will increase tech budgets, or they believe their businesses will increase tech budgets in the future because of what's happened this year. The importance of the infrastructure guys getting people able to work from home, the importance of the cybersecurity guys being able to make sure that the remote working is secure, for example. But very, very interesting that 1 in 2 IT leaders thinks there's more money coming to the tech department in years to come. So things are looking positive if you're involved in tech. So that's the landscape. Just wanted to pass you over really now to Steve and what Universum have done.
Yes, let me walk through. Thanks for that, Dom. And look, let me walk through what we're going to sort of analyze and look over and some of the key highlights. So specifically, I think Dom, you mentioned before, one of the questions I was asking in preparation was, is this a local survey or is it a global survey? Yes, we do a global survey, and we do it in 41 countries in the world. But what we obviously want to focus on today with CWJobs is the UK talent market, the UK tech talent market. So you can see there's our overall numbers, but the of all the categories that we surveyed, this is in professional. So we also do student research, but this one we want to look at people who are working in technology right now, IT and tech right now. And 1,577 tech professionals responded to our survey this year. So it's a lovely number to take a really good snapshot from. And moving on to the next slide, I'll give you a bit of a breakdown of the kind of some of the highlights of where these sort of come from. I think that probably you can see on the top left there with the age, it's a real balance of the key age groups that we would mostly be employing. There are categories just above and just below those that are in the sort of single figure percentages, but the greater weight is in that 24 to mid 50s kind of area that we would regard most of the professional talent to sit within. Gender-wise, no terrible surprise. It's a 75-25 split. I think if we were to anecdotally say what the split is in tech with regard to male-female, it's typically around that 70-30, 75-25. So that gives you an idea of the breakdown of this. The industries, there's a few examples. You can see the top 2 are software and tech, and IT and engineering consulting. There's quite a number of others as well, but you can see fintech is now starting to grow a big chunk of this as well. There are other areas that this covers too. And just to demonstrate, at bottom right hand corner, again, there are a number of categories, but we want to demonstrate actually that there is quite a high percentage of people who came from quite large companies when they respond to this. But equally, as you can see as well, there's also quite a good representation of people who work in more of the startup sector and the more independent consulting kind of sector. So it's a real balance. We've got a real balance of employers that they're representing and that they work for. So it's so we've got a good, hopefully good breakdown across the 1,500 or so respondents. Yeah,
and I actually think it's over-representative of the younger side, which is excellent, because that's what we want. They're probably the audience we're looking to attract more. And actually, unfortunately, 25% is higher than the female, the general female population of your normal tech department, because that's normally about 17%. But it's great that we've got slightly higher representation and hear that voice a little bit stronger. So that's really good.
That is good, and it does help us in some of the things that we're looking at as we go forward. Yes, for sure. So moving on, we want to look at I want to sort of go through some of the methodology with regard to how do we identify an ideal employer, and how do we identify what people regard as attractive. And so there's a number of things that we do in the journey of the survey that we send out. It's quite a long survey, and And one of the questions that we go through, the questioning process we go to, is try and create a kind of pseudo recruitment funnel. And one of the things we ask right at the start is we present them with about 150 companies in the UK that are significant employers, high-tech employers, fast-growing companies, etc., etc. So we'll list 150, and then they'll pick the ones that they recognise. So we'll say, which ones do you know? And that identifies our awareness part of the funnel. So they tick the ones they recognise, and then the ones they don't then disappear as they move on to consideration. And then we ask them, do you think which of these companies are now left do you think is an attractive employer? Would you be interested in working for? Do you kind of work into that category of, oh yeah, I quite like, I'd look into this company. And then they'll tick those, and then they'll move those, and the other ones, of course, will disappear again. And ordinarily, that's around kind of 20 to 25 people, companies that are left in most categories of talent. And then we'll say, right, we now want to choose 5. Because what we want to do now is to measure the desired stage of attraction, and we want you to choose 5 that your ideal employers you would absolutely choose to work for, and then they pick those 5, and then that what builds a ranking system that we'll look at a little bit later, some of the highlights of that, which gives us what the most ideal employers are in each kind of sector. And again, one of the things that you'll see at the end of this, and when you get sent this afterwards, is what the top 100 companies are in the UK for tech talent. So that's a journey we go through. But then you'll see this bit about brand perception as well, which we'll also look into a little bit, because when we say to people, oh right, you like this employer, we'll then go and ask, why do you like an employer, based on 40 drivers of employer attractiveness, and ask them to scale and judge companies based on their employer brand and how attractive they feel. They're good at D&I, do I feel like it's a safe place to work, blah blah blah. So number of factors. So we can see the sort of research we go through is super cool in really trying to understand the nuances of needs analysis of talent. So typically, like I say, the consideration phase, if we move on to the next slide, typically we find it's about 20 to 25 respondents. The tech sector is a little different. Business is quite wide as well, as you can see on the left-hand side. But what we can see here is the tech sector. This is the consideration phase in that funnel. Actually, in 2020, it's 34. So from the 150 that we present them at the start, 150, 160, it comes down to 34. And what this is telling us, this is quite a rise, as you can see, compared to other industries. And what this is telling us quite clearly is that tech talent is open to consider more organizations. They've got a wider lens on the talent market, on the employer market, and therefore some of this probably bears true to what we know, that they're quite judicial about the way in which who they would want to work for, what is the right employer, what does it, and this is why the whole subject of what does tech talent want has always been so important in the last few years, because it's increasingly harder to differentiate ourselves, because we are in a big mix of companies that we're comparing. If you consider that if a tech professional has got 150 to choose from, and then it says I'm going to look at 34, that's still super competitive. So grabbing the attention of tech talent is increasingly harder. So a lot of the work that we do with our insights is going to hopefully provide a lot of help in that. So it's super competitive.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that the audience can probably respect that as well, with difficulty finding.
So. Yeah, I think so too. And certainly when you see the comparison to the other industries, where it's no surprise in a way here, but certainly it's growing. The point of
one of the interesting points though, Steve, is that it's because tech is permeating all parts of businesses. This is probably relevant to the entire company brand rather than just their tech name.
Yeah, it is, and I think remember this. These categorizations are by the kind of job type that they do, or where their education has taken them into, and so so this is definitely tech talent. But there are a lot of numbers, a lot of factors to consider, and that's why going back to what I was referring to in the previous slide around the fact that when we identify what the talent wants and what is attractive about an org, we use 40 drivers. It's like a dial-up mixing desk, kind of dial up, dial down kind of thing, because then that gives us lots of nuance and lots of understanding of all the flavors of what tech talent wants, and equally therefore how we're attractive and how we can resonate with them. So it gives us enough motivators that it isn't based on just a handful of ideologies. It's actually quite a range of things that we consider, and so it's so there's a lot more. Sometimes some of these things are quite obvious, some of them really aren't, and then when we break into male female, as we'll see later, even then it becomes a little bit more challenging as well. So moving on to the The next slide were the other questions we asked about this. So given that we're now in this super hyper competitive space and people are open to more organizations, one of the other questions we ask about is loyalty. What is your loyalty to professionals? And we'll say, and so one of the questions we'll ask is, would you recommend? 62% said they would, and 66% said they were satisfied with their current employer. Again, what does that mean? And from a benchmarking, well, that's better than all other industries apart from, or all other groups of talent, I should say, other than engineering. Engineering is slightly higher, and only by 2 or 3 index points on each there. But certainly, what this demonstrates is, as a community, the loyalty factor is quite high. But then we also had another question. We asked them, when are you considering, when do you think you're going to be considering your next role? When do you think it's the right time to move on to your next role? We gave them the options of 6 to 12, 12 to 24 months, and 24 months to 4 years. I think it takes 2 to 4 years. In the 0 to 6, 12 months period, in that period up to 41% of men said they were considering changing employer within 12 months, and 49% of women said they were changing employer in 12 months. So what we see here is almost what we've just seen in that previous slide. Yes, there's a loyalty, and people, tech talent chooses its employers, like I say, pretty judicially, make really smart decisions. I've certainly seen this. I've worked a lot in tech over the last few years, and they make really smart decisions. They don't often make decisions on a whim. So there is a loyalty. There's a reason why they join the company. They often believe in the projects that they're working in and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean their ears and eyes are closed. It means they're very, very open, and they're very aware of what is available around them. I find this, I've always found this in the recruitment and branding land and tech, is that they're very, very aware of their strengths as a professional, and their needs, their demands for their talent. So there's 2 things to look at from this, from a hiring perspective. One that says, if we're good with our messaging, if we're smart and tailored about the way in which we communicate our messaging, we can turn heads. We've got the opportunity to turn heads despite the loyalty that exists there. But equally, as employers, we've also got to consider about, look, we've got this loyalty factor. What do we offer as an organization that makes sure we hang on to our talent? So some things to consider there, which I think are certainly fascinating.
And I think that it probably outweighs, yes, we're talking about 9% of the working population now, but it's as far as people moving on and retention, the amount of work to keep that 9% probably outweighs a lot of other areas, because they're less likely to look over the fence and see, oh, that looks an exciting project, so go and do that for 2 years, because I'd love to come back here eventually. And it's quite I won't say fickle, because as you say, it's always well judged, but as members of the audience can probably agree with, you've got a lot of work to bring them on board and a lot of work to keep them in place.
Keep them in place, yeah. And we all know that these are the people that are tapped up on LinkedIn and GitHub and all the other things pretty regularly, and so the head is always got the opportunity to turn. So we have to do, so when we talk about employer brand, it's not just about how we attract, it's about how we retain. And so you make a great point there about how important the retention piece is. And so looking a little bit more into some of the drivers, so I think the next thing we're looking at, I mentioned a short while ago, the 40 drivers of employer attractiveness. So these measurement factors that we look at. So some of the things we're going to look at in a minute are built around this. So when you see a phrase of corporate social responsibility or creative working dynamic, what do we mean? What do I mean by that? Well, this is the 40 drivers of employer attractiveness, and that we're going to see in some of the things that we're measuring. And basically, from an understanding of how we ask this, we basically present each survey respondent with these 40 attributes. They're split into those 4 groups, as you can see there, and we ask them to measure from 1 to 5 what is important to them when they're studying a new company, when they're looking at a brand of a new company and they're trying to decide what's a good employer and what's an irrelevant employer to them, which of these are important. And we have them score all 40 from 1 to 5. And that's what I mean about the mixing desk kind of style, because if every one person is doing that, and then you've got 1,500 respondents doing that, it gives us a really great flavor of what are the peaks and the troughs in regards to what's important. But by the same token as well, we use these same 40 drivers both in measuring brands. So when we say, oh, you like Google, tell us why you like Google, measure them from 1 to 5 and all of these things. And equally, when we do internal surveys inside organizations, try and understand the internal employer brand or what people feel about organizations, we use the same driver's end, score your company and how they feel they're performing in each of these areas from 1 to 5. So really, this is a global benchmark. We use this all around the world, and all the biggest companies around the world use this as their global benchmark for employer branding. It's a great mixing desk and approach to this.
It was interesting actually, because when we first saw this slide, it was like, oh, is that a bit busy? Could we trim it down? And your point was, no, this is the absolute DNA of this of what we do, and it needs to be up there because each of these has an importance, and I think it actually is the backbone of what you do, and focusing on and not trying to take any shortcuts, and that's why this is so strong.
Data and insights is never about shortcuts. It's always about really understanding all the flavors and the nuance, because then it means if you're trying to do targeted communications, you've got to hit the nail on the head. If you're going to turn hard to reach talent on that, then you've got to know the languages and the things that they want to, the drivers that they're interested in.
So as a bit of a teaser before we jump onto that, we've got our first poll.
We do.
Which area do you as recruiters focus on the most in your job ads to attract tech candidates? It'd be interesting to see. So if you can pick one of those, is it employer reputation and image? Is it the job characteristics? Is it the people, culture, and the workplace, as it were? Or is it remuneration, career advancement?
Hard to pick one, isn't it? But definitely, it is. But this is, who do you focus on most?
Yeah. So help us out here. Click one, and we'll see what the answers are in a moment or two.
There we go.
Okay, job characteristics, and I think actually in tech that's extremely important. We all know that articulating the challenge to a future tech candidate is incredibly important, rather than just a list of what they will be doing. How are they going to be helping the actual employer, and how is that employer actually helping the wider community and either the country or the globally as tech can?
No, that's super fascinating.
Great, thank you for that.
There's no right or wrong answer. It wasn't like a test. It is interesting though, because as we go through this, we start to see where tech talent is leaning towards, what they find interesting. So it'll be interesting. I've just taken a snapshot of that, so I can maybe try and refer to it as we go through. So right. So looking at the next slide, let's look at what they do care about. Looking in those 4 categories basically. So what we're looking at here is what are the things in each of those 4 categories that tech talent cares about the most. Which ones do they rank and score higher, and which ones, and we'll just allude quickly to the ones that they score the lowest, just so you've got some vision of those as well. But what we can see here is in the employer brand and reputation side, which was not a huge importance in the way in which you communicate. It was it 12%? I think that was 15%. The things that they look for in employer reputation and image are no real surprise. It's embracing new tech and innovation. So I think there are others, of course. These are of 40. Remember, this is in each corner is about 10, and these are the top 2 in that particular quadrant. And there's no terrible surprises there. I think we'd expect tech talent to be looking out for the quality of the tech, and are they doing something that's really innovative and the like. So no surprises there. That's expected, I would say. Job characteristics. So you tell us that job characteristics is the area that you spend the most time on. We'll look at, these are the top 2 things in that category that tech talent is looking for. And they want to see evidence when they look at a job of flexible working conditions and training and development. Now, this is super interesting, because I think what we know is that flexible work conditions is quite a broad statement, to be honest. There's a lot involved in flexible working. It's not just about, clocking off early when you need to and all that kind of stuff. And it's not just about working remotely. There are lots of things around the way in which we operate as businesses that they're looking for, but it's the one that they look for. And this is super popular across a lot of talent types at the moment, and equally in the stuff that we've done since COVID, even more so because of the challenges of remote working and all that kind of stuff. So it's common. This is something that's really, really important. Think about how you communicate this. There are a number of thought processes that could go into this, And then training development. People don't talk about training development very much in employer branding, and we've just said it's one of the job characteristics. It's an area that we talk about a lot. But when you do so, do you talk about the opportunities for developing their skills, learning new skills, learning new code, learning new project management processes and methodologies, and all these sort of things? Are you showing that you're supporting? When we think back to the, a couple of slides ago, looking at how do we retain talent, are we thinking about how do we do the things that make them better at their job and make them better and better and better? And that's the thing to think about. And often we're not very good, if I'm really honest, about communicating training development, but it's the thing that everybody wants, from students through to professionals. We sometimes think, oh, once they've been a student and they're into professional, they don't worry about that anymore. Well, that's not true.
And I think it's an assumption as well when you're recruiting such skilled staff. The assumption is that they're kind of top of the pile, won't want to look further, but it's a chief characteristic of people in IT, isn't it? That they're always looking for the next thing, the next technology, and how they can be part of that next brilliant project. So I think it's very easily understandable why people forget to put it in there, but it's obviously resonates really strongly with,
and you'll know more than me, Don, but the industry is developing faster than any other industry as well. From a point of view of the development of technology and code and innovation and AI and automation, all these things that are now embedded into this, which means actually, this is not just, it's partly about those skills that we were talking about as well. It's also about the development. When I say development, it's also development of their career. So it's the development of, am I a more rounded professional when I leave this organization than I was when I joined? Or if I'm staying here because I'm a more rounded, and that's sometimes about the projects that they do as well, and the things that they get the opportunity and exposure to work on. So there's a number of things to think about when we think about training and development. There's a number of areas, and I would encourage companies to think a little bit more about how you present that in job ads and career pages and the like. So the people and culture side, which I think was the second highest, if I remember. I'll pull up my picture quickly again of the thing. 20-something percent, 26% I think it was. And that's really important because I think we know, as we can see here, the quite high percentage elements here. Friendly working environment and encouraging work-life balance. Now, friendly working environment is a super interesting one. Tech talent, we're finding, generally wants this culture that says, I feel at home working here. I like the people. I enjoy the people around me. I got a little balance of social that forms alongside the professional. I want to go for lunch with my colleagues and all that kind of stuff. But this is different now. What friendly working environment meant a year ago, what it means now is somewhat different, because it isn't so much about the breakout rooms where we have lunch and the Pizza Fridays and the talks and stuff inside the business and the football tables and the high fives in the corridor, which nobody ever did anyway, but we always see it on employer branding stuff. But the reality is that we're all at home. If we're all predominantly at home now, or 75% at home, or even 50% of the time at home, friendly working environment has different connotations. It considers how do we engage remote workers with their colleagues and with the community inside the organization. Companies that have done this well this year have actually increased the level of friendly work environment, because of course, actually, weirdly enough, we know more things about, I can see a bunch of books that are on Dom's shelf in the background, and I could ask him questions about it, and I would learn more about Dom as a consequence of this. Dom will probably wonder why there's a big clock on the wall behind me that seems to dominate the wall as a piece. But I could explain to him as to why my girlfriend chose the said watch on the wall. And the thing is, we've learned a lot about each other, a lot more through this, and actually we've created opportunities to learn more about each other, kids, family, pets, quality of the kitchen, etc., etc. So I think what this means is different now, and how we display this is really, really different now. So I think it's a really important thing to think about, because it links also to the encouraging work-life balance, i.e. the balance between our professional existence and our social and personal existence, and how encouraging the company is, or supporting the things that we do as humans as well as professionals. So really interesting environment when we're thinking about what we should dial up when we think about people and culture. And then the careers, now interestingly enough, only 4% of the respondents in that survey said they focus on remuneration and career advancement, which is fine. I wonder why. Do we accept that tech talent doesn't stay as long as we hope to, so we don't think about their career prospects and we don't talk about where they're going and what they can achieve when they get there? Interesting. I don't know. What we're seeing here, of all the ones in the weighted percentage scoring of all our respondents, the biggest one that people want is to be sure they've got a competitive base salary. They want, it's always going to be, and I think we know this, I've done enough recruiting of tech talent, to know that this is a big thing. The salary is super, super important. It's going to be one of the big pools to move forward. Yes, we know there are lots of projects and some of the work types, but you've still got to pay the money to get them across to the next side. So we need to make sure that we are capable of demonstrating that in some kind of way, you know, thinking about from a strategic perspective about, can we pay the best? If we're going to attract from the best, can we pay for the best, blah, blah, blah. So something to think about in the way in which we build packages, because sometimes it's not always just in salary, sometimes it's in equity packages and the like for certain companies. But there is also the second one, there is clear path for advancement. And so, yeah, where are they going to go? Where's their career going to go with it? It's not always about going up, remember, when we talk about career advancement, it's about broadening. Not every, so my experience is, and not every tech professional wants to climb the ladder. But what they do want to do is they want to expand their capabilities. And so that's some of the positive ones. And just for a glance more than anything else, just because I don't want to go through too many of these, but just so you can kind of see, there's a number of things at the bottom here, and one or two of these things we will tackle a little bit as we move on a little bit as well. But these are the bottom two of each of the 10 in those 4 categories. And we're seeing certain things that are maybe not surprising, and some of them are surprising. But one of the things that we probably just wanted to focus a little bit on is the one bottom left-hand corner, fast growth and entrepreneurial. Now, one of the trends that we've seen now consistently for 2-3 years is the appeal of the startup is not as big as it used to be. It's there are more tech professionals now, and tech students are looking at the bigger corporate organizations to be their employer. And they're more attracted to them, and the feeling of security and safety that fits inside a large organization. And remember, everybody's a tech employer now, and they're becoming more appealing. And sometimes some of that fun and ingenuity and entrepreneurialness of a startup that was super, super popular 5 to 10 years ago is not as competitive anymore. And I know, again, this from tech conversations that I've had with talent over the last 2 or 3 years, that it's not, being a funky tech startup with cool things doesn't matter anymore. It isn't the same pull. So what we need to think about as organizations now is to think about, if we are a tech startup, or if we are a growing tech startup, and we used to play on quite a lot of factors that are kind of fun and around the environment, actually what we need to demonstrate is some more harder attributes, some more secure and harder attributes in the way in which we communicate. I don't know, is that something you guys have seen at CWJobs, Dom? Is there any evidence to suggest that from an activity point of view? Or
well, I mean, traditionally fast growth and startup companies would be friends of friends, so they wouldn't necessarily be advertising in bulk, because it would be 6 guys in Old Street or something like that. So they weren't exactly a bedrock. But you're right, it used to be considered a badge of honor, didn't it, with regards to I'm working at a great startup, I'm a risk taker, I'm in tech, and I'm really cool, that kind of aspect. But I think that has, as you're saying, we're all tech recruiters now. Every business is a tech recruiter, and I think with that has come the stereotypes are falling away even further, and it's part and parcel of every single company. But particularly this year, as you make the point, that security issue is a major factor of where I want to be now and where I want to be in the future. Because if anything like this happens again, I want to know I've got something to fall back on, rather than bang, gone. So it is a surprise to see it, but to go back to your point, the whole mixing desk analogy, you're not saying that is unimportant. You're saying that maybe when you're advertising, to tone the volume of that down, but remember to get in the flexible working conditions, the friendly working environment, the clear path for advancement, for example, if you happen to be a startup. Yeah,
you can prove it. Yeah, exactly. No, I think, and this is a really important point with all of this. People have picked everyone, so people have chosen, all of these things along the way. But the idea about mixing desk and the idea of employer branding and recruitment marketing as a whole is, what do you do each channel for? If you're advertising a job on CWJobs, then you've got to think about what you want to do to attract talent now. What do they need? What will turn their heads right now to kind of go, oh, I could work there. This is good. Click, go. If you're doing targeted social media marketing, that we do a lot of stuff with, again, you focus on the things that will turn the heads that they need right now. But if you're nurturing talent, or if you're talking about the kind of content on your careers page, and you've got to paint a bigger picture. It's not about what you'll need now, what people need now. It's about how do you dial up and dial down appropriately. And we're never going to, I mean, we see support for gender equality down the continent. It doesn't mean it's not important. It just means in a decision-making process, it probably isn't important, but it doesn't mean it's not important as a subject area. And we've still got to represent that for corporate values and things in our website and career site, etc. But so think about the different channels you use, or different purposes as to why we build a career page versus why we write a job ad. And therefore, you have to make sure we balance and dial up and dial down the right mix. So moving on to the next slide, then we're looking at just a couple of glance here at what COVID has changed during the course of this. And there's a lot more we found about this, but for the purpose of brevity today, we focused on the fact that actually there are some changes, and you can see these quite big percentage changes. Now, what this means is, what this stems from, I should say, is the professional survey that we're talking about straddled the pre-COVID period and then the period of lockdown that started in the middle of March. So about 80% of it was pre-March the 15th, and then the final 2.5 months, the 20% of the respondents were after. So what we did is a little study to kind of go, I wonder what the difference is. What was the difference in response as to what's important prior to March the 15th and then post-March the 15th? And these are the ones that were no terrible surprise, really, to think about. But actually, these are the ones that were really, really stood out in a big jump in embracing new technology. And they want to see you've adapted to this environment really, really well. And we can take these very blasé and go, oh, of course we're not doing new tech. Of course we've done, we're a little more flexible now. We're having to deal with things around the house and blah, blah. And of course we're more in touch with innovation because the future of work has accelerated this year as a consequence of what has happened. There's one thing doing it. There's another thing then, the ability to tell it. And what we've got to make sure that we do in our communications, if this is so high and so important to talent that they're going to be measuring and judging you effectively on this, then you've got to be clear in the way in which you're demonstrating these things in coordination with some of those other things that we have talked about friendly work environments and everything else. So don't just kind of say, oh, we've done it. They might not get to your application page if they can't see it beforehand. And remember, they're being very judicial. They're looking at all the options and they're weighing up all the options. Make sure you're telling these stories really, really well. Beyond this, there's lots and lots of interesting studies we've got around the difference between men and women and how they responded to the crisis. We haven't really got time for that today, but certainly if anybody wants to chat to me afterwards about that, I'll happily share some of the extra nuances that we've noticed since March. Very fascinating and very important targeted communications. And talking of gender nuance, oh, you've got something to mention? Sorry, Dom.
You are. I was just going to say there's quite a lot of distinct similarity there, isn't there? And it's interesting how, when we move to the next slide, I think it is, isn't it, that becomes
yeah. So we wanted to
disparate points.
Yeah, totally. And I think we jump in here a little bit to the whole business of when we're looking at male versus female, because everything we do in our research, it balances the difference between what men think and what women think versus what the entirety kind of thinks. This was super scary, and look, tech talent is not alone in this. It's not only tech; it's in other industries as well. The gender equality gap is not narrowing. In fact, it's widening, and this is wider than it was the previous year. When we ask the question to tech professionals, what do you expect your next salary to be? Women on average say 38,000, men on average say 47,500. That's a 20% difference. Now, there are some obvious factors to this. We still know that institutionally there are probably more men in senior roles in technology than in women. We know that to be the case because of the mere fact there are more men in the sector, and therefore there is always going to be that balance. But that won't cause a 20% balance. And I can think of sitting inside environments where the judgment of an individual is based on the performance of the person, etc. But then when you've chosen the right person, whether it's male or female, then you decide what salary it's going to be based on the person it is you're hiring. And that goes against what we're trying to achieve with gender equality. Gender equality is built on the idea that is as if Joanne, the female tech person, applies for a job, but Joseph, the man, and the male tech person applies a job, and the job was £55,000, then it's £55,000. That's what we pay salary for the role. We don't kind of go, oh, well, if we give it to Joanne, she only wants 44 and a half, so therefore that will save us 10 grand a year in salary. That accentuates the problem because Joanne will only ever think that she can get 45,000 salary, whereas the men, and men too tend to push for higher salaries, we know this to be the case, will always go for, if we say 55, they'll go for 60. They'll try for 60. And that creates this greater disparity between male and female, and that is a problem that we have a responsibility of organizations to try and resolve.
It's really interesting actually, Steve, because we use this as a teaser on LinkedIn, and somebody sent through a question, and it says, expecting 20% less salary than men, it risks perpetuating the gap. Will you act to move tech to fair pay and parity? Now, I don't know if that's meaning me and you, Steve, or the wider community. Unfortunately, all we can do, well, it's not unfortunate, because I think it is really important in what we do, and I think it's a very good question. You know, are we perpetuating it? Well, I think certainly what we're trying to do is say, this is what the situation is. How do we tackle that? And we discussed this previously, didn't we, Steve? And the common answer is, well, you know, read a book on assertiveness, listen to a podcast on how you get more out of your employer, and you came up with quite a distinct, different opinion to this, because you think the responsibility lies elsewhere, don't you?
Yeah, I think that we're as organisations, we've got to demonstrate. We're the ones who have got to lay the roads to run on. What we can't say is, oh, well, they just need to be more assertive. Or somebody said I actually did a webinar or a talk last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, and somebody said in the chat, they said, well, should we're training women at college to negotiate better and all this kind of stuff? Yes, by the way, I mean, sure, I mean, that's part of it. But the reality is, what we can't change is embedded characteristics that are almost kind of tribal, effectively. So those tribal characteristics, and those tribal characteristics are, men will be more aggressive, women will be less aggressive. It's just a tribal, natural kind of process. And what we're looking at the tech sector as well here, what we're talking about here quite a lot is developers and back office, back end engineers, they're not by nature. You can't assume these people will be aggressive by nature. They're not salespeople. They're not business leaders. They're not, whatever else it might be. So what we've got to do is lay a path that says, hey, don't worry, Joanne. You've got the same opportunities as Joseph has. You're playing a level playing field. When we choose the role for the role, it will be £55,000. And the only way we'll alter it slightly is maybe to go up slightly if we have to get the right person. But we will not drop our salary just to try and kind of go, well, we've solved two things in one go. We've sorted our diversity issue out, and we've managed to save a bit of money in the process. That's really bad immoral practice. And what we've got to try and build on is the lay of the land that tells women in our employer brand communications, in our job advertising, etc., that the opportunities are the same for both. The opportunities and the pay scales are the same for both. There's a big movement at the moment in government. It's been lobbied to government to have more exposure of salaries, more transparency of salaries and salary bandings, at least in organizations, and that's probably not a bad thing. It's a contentious thing. It's probably not a bad thing, because we're never going to solve this. This is going the wrong way, and I think we've got and even hairy old men like us, we know we've got to solve these challenges ourselves as well, because a lot of the responsibility falls on men.
Absolutely, be part of that solution. But I equally, having placed many technical people, I know that there are very, very good technical people that aren't aggressive on what salary they want, and our business is missing out on paying the aggressive person more when they're maybe not as talented. So I think this salary ban is good advice. Of course, it's then you get in a bidding war with a company down the road that you kind of think, oh, but I desperately need them for this project. So it's never easy. It's never easy. But I think that it's a step in the right direction.
It goes back again to the salary is an important factor, and therefore it's about setting the right base salaries, knowing your market value of talent, and making sure that you have got opportunities in your organization to people. And certainly, thinking about some of the smaller businesses and the startups, I've worked in some over the last 2 or 3 years where equity is an option, an opportunity for equity. And that's a great way of balancing pay and making sure that you're competitive against larger organizations. For larger organizations, you're all going to be in more salary banded kind of environments, but sometimes we just need to communicate that we're like that. We actually maybe are doing it. Everybody tells me they're doing this. When we talk about this, they'll say, well, we're doing this. We're doing all the right things. We've been working on this for years. But we've got to communicate it better, because the whole point of this question is, what do you think your next salary will be? And if it's lower, if it's this much lower, we'd expect it to be maybe 5 to 10% lower, because because of indoctrinated kind of challenges we've still got to get over. But at the same time as well, this is too big. 20%. If women don't feel as though they can ask for as much money, then we're not telling the story enough. So good contentious one, really interesting one as well. But from that, I think we've got a poll, haven't we, to about this very subject.
Indeed. So second time at your mice. Do you know what to include in job ad to resonate better with female tech talent? So is that a yes, a no, or you're just not sure? There's so much advice out there, you're just not sure. So one of the three, please. We don't get to vote, unfortunately.
We don't. In a second, we've got some useful answers.
So yeah, okay, that's good. People understanding that, people feeling they've got a good idea of how to do that, but as many people simply not sure.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I'm going to just do my picture of that quickly. Oh no, missed it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
31% yes, 42% not sure, and 19% no.
Let's look at some of the things that we can point to quite quickly, because I know we're conscious of time a little bit here, but certainly to help direct us a little bit here. Here are some of the differences between men and women. So this is tech talent in the UK, 40 drivers. What are the top 10? So now we're not grouping it by the 4 categories I did, which I'm taking it from 1 to 40, basically. So number 1. So what you can see here is that men go for competitive base salary, embracing new tech and innovation right at the top. Women focusing more on flexible working conditions and promoting work balance. And we can sort of see another notable different ones there. It's very popular since COVID as well, which is leaders who support my development. And what this demonstrates is a number of differences between men and women that help us a little bit dial down. So going back to that poll question, what do we dial up if we want to try and attract more women? What do we dial down if we want to kind of not make it too male focused in the way in which we're presenting adverts and communicating? But one of the things that's really noticeable here as well, when you look at the other 7 in the top 10, on the whole, they're pretty similar. There's a lot of similarities. So what do we notice about this? It's not hugely rocket science. There are still some core things that tech talent consistently want. But what we've just got to remember is, if we're going to embrace women, remember what we have to do typically is we need to embrace women. Men will go for a job if they've only got 60-70% of the attributes. They'll go, I can still do it. I can still be there. I can still do it. I want to be pushed harder, blah, blah, blah. Women are different. Women, we all know historically, will always look at, need to be sure they can tick all the boxes. They want to be 90% sure they can do a job at least before they're willing to apply. So what we need to do is therefore dial up our communication to women. Men will go anyway. Men, if they see the thing they want, they'll go anyway. So therefore, what we need to learn from this slide here is where we weight some of our balance of communications and the way we do job ads, and the way we communicate through recruitment marketing and branding and the like. Focus on, because I'll tell you now, right? I think Dom and I, as we can certainly say this, if we're dialing up more on flexible work conditions, enjoying work-life balance and leadership guidance and all that kind of stuff, we're not going to not attract men. We're going to absolutely, men are going to look at those and go, yeah, we'll have a bit of that as well. So the point is, if we're thinking about how we're communicating to our audiences, and we've still got an agenda to attract women, then focus your attention on the attributes that women need, because they'll be suitable for men as well.
And there were 2 questions actually, looking at cybersecurity. How do we balance the diversity piece on that, and software developers? Now, it's not going to be easy. The unfortunate news is it's not going to be easy. There's no silver bullet. But if you look at your job advert in terms of the one on the right, under women, and it resonates highly in that. The good news is you're not going to, as you were saying, Steve, you're not going to be turning off the men, but you are going to be focusing on and priming your chances to get applications from women. And I think that some of the proof positive on this is the story from last week, where Zurich was talking about some great successes in highlighting flexible working and getting increased applications from women, and actually going through the job ads using a gender decoder tool. Total Jobs has got one available online, and that was actually working really, really well for them. So stuff outside of this is kind of backing this up, and it's been found. So my advice to the two people that asked on the cyber security and software developers is review your job ad and see if it resonates to what women want.
Review
and dial up those more than the other side.
Absolutely. And the other thing to think about as well, you know, we're looking very much at professional research here. So this is people who are already almost kind of defined their career, they've defined their journey. So we're probably talking about people here who've already decided they are not or are in cybersecurity or whatever it is they're in. But the other area of research that we do that obviously is going to be super fascinating in 2021 because of obviously what we've gone through this year, is the student research as well, and the early careers research, and that in itself will be super fascinating, because actually there's a onus on employers who need to attract more cybersecurity. I'm using that as the prime example here. Talent, they need to kind of carve out that career opportunity to students as being a viable career opportunity for female tech students to go down. And so there's a responsibility for building the relevance of it at an early stage. This is talking about professionals, but there are methods, certainly through Universum's capabilities, to reach student talent and start influencing those journeys with really great content and stories as well. So think about that, because I think, as you alluded, Dom, there is no silver bullet, but what we can start to do is we can start to change if you start early with some of these subjects, then obviously we create more opportunities further down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the breakdown. So just going back to our rankings very, very briefly that I mentioned earlier, we've got here on the next slide the 5 companies who are the most attractive to women in tech in the UK. So no surprises with some of these organisations, but lovely to see that the NHS is number 3. So the NHS is the 3rd most attractive tech employer in the UK. And these are the things that sort of maybe surprise us a little bit, but it's great. I mean, Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. Sometimes people go, always those guys. Always. Well, the reason they're always at the top is because they never, ever give up. I interviewed Google a couple of months ago on their to celebrate them winning an award, a global award, on this traction piece. And you listen to the story, they never, ever get complacent. They never, ever stop thinking about how they better innovate the way they communicate to talent. They're always interested in our insights and the knowledge of what it is that talent needs and all that kind of stuff. And that's a learning lesson you learn from to everyone, is the fact that actually we can never switch this off. We can't be blasé about talent attraction and the importance of it, and the way in which because it's evolving year after year, and we've got to stay abreast of it, because these kind of companies absolutely do. To look at the overall 10 companies at the top 10, those are the top 10 across tech talent entirely. So again, we see some similar names there. We also see some different ones, don't we, Dom? There's some interesting ones that we probably wouldn't expect, like the Secret Intelligence Service. How about that? The tech talent would really love to work for the MI5 and the MI6 and the like. That's very, very cool.
It's great. We see those kind of British bastions holding up there in the NHS, MI6 and the BBC. And the fact that they can rub shoulders with the likes of an Apple or a Google, a Facebook, it really does show what the whole EVP thing can bring to the table.
And it also reminds us that tech employers are, something like the MI6 and an OHMRC is another great example. These are the biggest employers of tech talent in the UK. They've got lots of opportunities. They employ lots of tech people, and they're very viable avenues. And actually, they meet a lot of the needs of talent right now, which is around security and purpose and all these sort of things. So there's some really good stories to come out of those sort of organisations to counter the more corporate kind of approach. So there's our top 10s. So back to you, Dom.
Yeah, I'll just wrap things up really. So some practical advice. Plenty of advice from Steve, plenty of pointers, and you will be receiving this webinar afterwards, so you can look at those 40 attributes. But it's quite clear, one size doesn't fit all. Each company is going to have different requirements at different times. But the most important thing is that communication, the bespoke messaging to the audience you want to reach out to. And, you know, overlaying some of the information in this. There's been a previous webinar that Steve and I did talking about Generation Z and Generation X, looking at, and that's where the whole graduate piece can be involved. And overlaying that on this could actually be a fascinating and constructive thing to do. So it's a new working environment. I think there'll undoubtedly be many webinars next year talking about onboarding remotely, creating culture remotely, and that will be fascinating as well. But we are part of that journey at the moment. And it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. Be clearer if you're going for female talent, then I think you have to be clearer and more concise with the areas you focus on in the actual job ads. And that's been very clearly pointed out, both to us and hopefully to you as the audience on the presentation. And continue to research that talent market. Going back to Steve's point about Google, never sitting on their laurels and going, well, we're Google, come and get it. Always just get the idea they're always searching for the edge, marginal gains to always improve. And that comes across loud and clear, doesn't it? So that's the best in class top tips. How else can we expand the talent pool? Well, we also did a survey to 2,000 professionals, both in tech and outside of tech, and it was called Turning to Tech. So people that have thought of maybe outside of the tech environment, looking at, given the current environment, given the current COVID situation, looking at career changing. And it's fascinating that 55% of non-tech people have thought about changing careers into tech. And I think if you want to balance the workforce, this is something you can really work with. It's going to take investment, but it is a way of balancing up the diversity piece as well, with intake that you bring in maybe from outside of tech, that you give them a step up on the road to maybe getting into infrastructure or IT support. So remember to consider that as a possibility as well, to really boost your tech community in terms of diversity, but also skills outside of maybe the normal pure play tech. And interesting actually that 81% of respondents that worked in tech said they would welcome people outside of it coming in, because they'd bring fresh ideas. And I think it was 39% said that people outside of tech could definitely help bridge the talent gap, the skills gap rather. So there's a realism within the tech community, and that's really good to see. And there's not this kind of well, they haven't spent 20 years of their life coding, so they're not allowed into the club, as it were. There is an understanding that we need to augment the talent we currently have in there. So yeah, that's worth considering, and contact me if you want to learn more about that survey. Finally, some things to look out for. Look at young talent, give them a chance. I think there's going to be an absolute plethora of very talented young people next year. So don't lock them out. If you can look at some kind of apprenticeship schemes, I think that they're well worthwhile. Companies like Sky do a brilliant job up in Livingston, I think it is, that they look at bringing in and training up people. But what it also means, again, you decide what that intake is, 50-50 male and female, and you can work with that going down the line. Candidates with disabilities are working remotely now. The fact that you may work in an office that you don't think is easy to get in and out of is almost irrelevant now. Career changes I just touched upon, and people working remotely. Maybe they can be working in Aberdeen. It doesn't matter if your company's in London. This is really important as well. Make sure you are championing what you are doing within your business, and that goes for both ethnic diversity and the diversity of male and females within your company. We have a really good product now called Equality Boost. It's been a long day already. equality boost, which overlays programmatic sensibilities with using ONS data, and basically floods the area of high, maybe you're looking for a high ethnic minority. So we can use the ONS data to see what areas in the UK that would be particularly relevant to. But please speak to me if you want to know more about that, because that's going to become a really, really effective way to heighten applications from ethnic minorities, I think. And that will only improve as our AI gets better on that. And work with the industry. Make sure that you let candidates know that you are interested in what is going on in the wider industry. Companies like, or charters like Tech Talent Charter and associations like Tech UK, invaluable to put on your job ads to make sure that your people or your prospective applicants know that you're backing tech within the UK and as a career. So I think that's it. We've got, I think we've overrun by 2 minutes. We have answered the questions that I've been sent through, bar one, and that was, so how can I maximize diversity when attracting cyber graduates? We touched upon that. I think that if maybe Steve and I get back to the person that asked that, yeah, we can look at some of the Generation Z stuff that we were talking about. Yeah. We could really give you a good answer on that. How do you diversify talents in IT, and how do you influence hiring managers to have different talents within the team, i.e. gender? Now, I think this is an interesting question, but I think it then goes to having a diverse hiring team, and that can be age, it can be sex, it can be sexuality, it can be ethnicity, and making sure that all of your guys aren't 22-year-old ex-recruitment consultant males, because they will have a very different mindset on who they need to bring in to maybe a 45-year-old mother of 3 that's come back as a career changer and has a very different worldview. So I think a lot of the onus should be put on the mix and the makeup of the hiring team. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that, Steve.
Yeah, one of the thoughts that's super important in this is the only way that hiring managers will change their decision-making process and their discipline is from leadership. So if the goal comes from leadership to say, look, we've got a big agenda here, we need to change our philosophy in regards to our hiring process in order to tackle gender diversity and the different layers of D&I we need to do. If it's driven from the leaders, if you get sponsorship and leaders to run this and they cannot possibly say no because this is such an important story right now, then that sends edicts down into the business that then that puts a certain amount of, shall we say, pressure. Pressure is a little bit of a strong word there, but you know what I mean, puts a bit of pressure on hiring managers to be a little bit more balanced about their thinking process. So work from the bottom up, as it were, as Don said, from an activity point of view, and then also from a get some leadership involvement and set it as a clear guideline.
Okay, some of these the box for questions is so small, Mark.
It is, isn't it? I know it doesn't go to well. We can always have time. I know we've overrun, so we can always we can answer.
I think we're going to have to. So apologies to people that have sent through the questions. I sincerely apologies there. But thanks, Steve. As ever, really interesting. I hope the audience the audience figures have maintained strongly throughout. So hopefully it was useful. Be happy to hear from you. Obviously, there are contact details at the bottom there. But have a great finish to the year, and I look forward to maybe speaking to some of you in 2021. Thanks again, Steve, and thank you to the back office team that are making this run so smoothly.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.